Have you ever felt like you're not qualified, even though you have the credentials? What if that voice that's telling you this isn't actually telling the truth? That's where the identity mismatch may be coming in with your imposter syndrome. So, what is imposter syndrome anyway? First of all, it's important to notice that it's not recognized as a psychiatric disorder, but it's a common experience affecting high achieving individuals. There's one study that suggests that 70% of adults have experienced imposter syndrome at least one time in their life. I don't know about you, but it's definitely more than one time for me. And it can look different for different people. So some of the common ways that it might express itself are doubting your accomplishments or a fear, having the fear of being found out, right? Oh no, they're gonna find out. Um, or maybe you have difficulty accepting praise. And if I can pause here for just a minute, I would love to encourage you that the next time somebody gives you a compliment, simply say thank you and receive it as the gift that they're offering it to you, right? When we diminish the gift by discrediting it in some way or oh no no or things like that, we're taking that gift that they've given us and we're kind of crumpling it up and throwing it to the side. So even if it's difficult, I'll encourage you just to receive the compliment and say thank you, right? It could look like attributing our success to luck or something else and that we had no part in it. It could be overworking yourself to prove that you're worthy of whatever it is that you're pushing for, and that you have to do this extra work in order to be validated and prove that you're okay. So why does this happen anyway? Well, like many of the beliefs that we hold that are actually many of the beliefs that are holding us back, it's something that has been automated often a long time ago, and it's running in the background when we aren't even thinking of it yet. It's going to hinder us from all of our attempts and efforts to move forward. There are some statistics that say 90% of everything you do and think in the day, it's running on autopilot. Yikes. But the good news is we can change that autopilot. And so that's some of what we're going to be talking about today. So, where do these automations come from? Old identity stories that are running in the background. Maybe it's a story we created when we were in childhood. Perhaps kids bullied us and we created a story around that. Maybe something happened in childhood. One that I hear repeated often is how parents got divorced and the child somehow takes ownership for that divorce. They feel like if they had done X, Y, and Z, maybe their parents wouldn't have gotten divorced. But do you see how that is a child coming at a traumatic situation that's rocking their world from a child's perspective? And yet they create that story and then repeat it often enough, and it can run on autopilot all their life, or until they do some of this work that we're going to talk about and realize that that has happened and change that automation. Some of these might come from experiences that we had in the past, things that we said. I mentioned bullying earlier. If somebody bullied us, or maybe more than one person bullied us, or maybe our parents said things about us that weren't helpful, and we believed it and we repeated it over and over again, and we took it on. A lot of times, those people said those things either out of their own pain, or they were projecting their own insecurities on us, or it was something that somebody had taught them, and they're just passing it along, and it wasn't ever true to begin with. Um, a lot of a lot of times, these automations, they aren't aligned with what's true now and the achievements that we're trying to do. I remember working with one client and asking her to look for some wins, and I'm going to be asking you to do the same in a moment. And she couldn't think of any. And it was she was missing the whole thing that she had actually completed a college degree. That takes a lot of, that's an accomplishment. That's a huge accomplishment, right? I remember I used to say that I'm not very good at systems, and then I started to challenge that belief or that phrase and realized that there was one time in my career where I created a system for an employer that I worked for, and they continued using that system long after I was gone, and in fact, until they eventually the owner retired and closed the business down, but they continued to use that system that I created. So I can create good systems. I have evidence for that. So how these stories and things impact us of believing that we're not good at systems or we don't have any accomplishments or we've believed the things that people said to us in the past or we created a story when we were younger to explain something traumatic that happened to us to try and give it meaning or way of coping with it. When those are running on autopilot, um, they're there to protect us from danger, something that's perceived as danger. And while it may have been dangerous originally, it's not dangerous anymore. And the other thing our brain likes to do is it likes to keep us true to ourselves. So if we tell it one thing, but then we try and operate in opposition to it, it's not going to do that. It's going to do the thing that we tell it to do that we've repeated over and over again. And so a lot of times this will look like procrastination, self-sabotage, not showing up fully or playing small, or maybe even just missing opportunities. So, what are we going to do about it? I'll tell you in just a minute something you can do. But before that, if this is your first time, I would just like to introduce myself. I'm Valerie Pugsley, a success mindset and abundance coach, and I help entrepreneurs and side hustlers have more confidence, focus, and momentum by helping them navigate the self-sabotage that often looks like imposter syndrome, perfectionism, procrastination, and overwhelm. And so let's get into it. What can you do about this? Well, the first thing I'd like you to do is create an evidence collection list. So I would like you to go back and look at your life. What are some milestone wins that you've had over your lifetime? And they don't always have to be big. Sometimes they can be small. One of the wins that I have was back from third grade. So they had a local art gallery or an local museum that would come around and teach classes in the school and give each class an assignment to do. And we would create the artwork, and then they would come back a few weeks later and they would go to each class and they would pick one or two pieces to be in an exhibit. And they would have a big picnic and put up a big exhibit with all of these different pieces of artwork. And mine got chosen one year for creative. I still remember it was a whale with the little water coming out. And that's why it got chosen, because it had the water coming out the spout. But so it could be as small as that, right? The win can be as small as that, or it can be like my friend, the gal who I told you about, who um, completed the college degree, right? Whatever it is, it can be an award that you received, a promotion that you got. It could be something that you've done that you were just happy and proud about. This past year, I threw a surprise party for my mom who turned 85, and there are some extenuating circumstances around that made it a little bit of a challenge. So that was an accomplishment. I set out to do it. I did it. It was a good time. I was successful. That's one of my wins, right? The wins and accomplishments can be arranged. Um, what positive feedback have you gotten? Did you ever get any job reviews where they had some positive things to say? Go ahead and put that. Are you doing things online where you get testimonials? Keep track of those testimonials. These will be good not only for the next piece of this exercise, but they're also really good when you're just having a low day and you need a boost. You can look at these things that other people have said about you. These are things that are true that people have said. Um, and then also keep track of current wins as they're happening. So one of the things I do is host a monthly co-working session. We call it the Review and Refocus Power Hour, where we come and we just review the past month. And that's a way of documenting what your wins are currently. There'll be a link for that down below. That's a side note there. But then now that we have this list of evidence of things that are true that we've accomplished and wins that we've had, now you're going to start paying attention to what is it that you're saying to yourself. And you're going to jot that down. Jot those down for a couple of days and see if you can start recognizing what are some of the maybe not so positive things that you're telling yourself, those things that might be holding you back. One that I'm working on right now is that I'm slow and I'm going to learn to have grace for my pace, right? But look at what those things are. And then we're going to take that list that we just created, and we're going to look for evidence to counter whatever that thing is that we're saying. And then once you find that evidence to counter what you've been telling yourself, what that automation is, you're going to want to repeat it frequently. You want to write it down where you can see it. Say it out loud. You can write it every day. You can create an audio and listen to it a couple of times a day. Whatever means is going to work for you, whichever way you're going to get it done. Write down these new truths based on the evidence that are going to help move you forward and override, overwrite, rewire, renew that old automation that is in place. Now, this is going to give you some quick wins initially, but you may need a deeper solution, because a lot of times we can't figure out what it is. What are those underlying things? We need somebody else to help us. I once heard somebody talk about it as we're inside the bottle and we need somebody outside to read the label. And so that's what a counselor or a coach can do. We can help you read the label and help you to rewire those automated thoughts. And that role is going to require getting to that root cause. And again, this is where having somebody else who can ask you questions, who can listen to what you're saying. Often when I'm working with clients, I ask a lot of questions. I'm very curious, have been since I was young. And I'll hear them say one thing, and then I'll hear them say another thing, and those two things are in opposition. And we can't hear ourselves saying that. I even do it. When coaches that I work with, I don't realize I'm doing it. They'll say, you said this and this. I'm like, I did? Like, I didn't even hear myself say that other thing. And that's why it's helpful to have somebody who can help us read the label. So get that help. And if you would like to have a conversation with me to see if that would be a good fit, you can do that at valcares.com/explore. And in the meantime, keep working on that list of wins and share in the comments below what are some wins that you have found that you can use as evidence to come against your imposter syndrome.